Hello everyone, and welcome to Dr. Judy WTF, and thank you so much for tuning in. And this is a call-in show, everyone. And the call-in number, as you see on the screen, or if you don't see it on the screen, it is 323-524-2599. And let's have a conversation about being addicted to love and toxic bonds and how this entire system gone wrong is created. And for those of you who are not familiar with me, by way of introduction, my name is Dr. Judy Rosenberg. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm founder of the Psychological Healing Center and creator of the mind map system for healing. And we are going to jump right into the mind map so you can understand a little bit about the backdrop to what causes love addiction and what creates this dance of dysfunction. And I'm sort of connecting a lot of dots tonight. I know I've done shows on love addiction and toxic bonds and dance of dysfunction, but we're sort of putting it all together because this is a really, really important topic. Because when we are wounded in childhood, we will do what I refer to as the WTF, or the Freud, the repetition principle. And this repetition principle does not break just because we want it to, or just because we consciously say so. This is a toxic bond that needs to be dismantled at the causal level, and it has to be processed through so that you, if you're in one, don't keep looping through the WTF. So let's bring up the mind map and then I can break it down for you. We could start talking about childhood wounds, which there are 5 of. I know there are many more, but I concentrate on the 5 wounds, which are physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal, emotional abuse, neglect, and smothering, controlling. So these are the wounds of childhood, and there's no way that we get out of childhood scot-free of wounds. So for some, it's very heavy on the psyche. For others, it's less heavy on the psyche. It's just that when we get into it on some level, we all have some kind of a level of a disconnect, as I call it, a parent-infant, a mother-infant disconnect, a father-infant disconnect. For the lucky ones, this connection is solid. It creates secure attachment. According to John Bowlby, who I refer to a lot, secure attachment is developed when a child gets their emotional needs met through eye contact, skin contact, attunement, preferably breastfeeding, preferably a lot of stay-at-home mothering, and a lot of interaction with the baby. If the baby is not interacted with, then the baby will feel neglected, and the baby will not have anybody to really develop a sense of self through, because we define our sense of self through the eyes of our parent. And if they're just emotionally not there, if they're physically not there, if they themselves are not available on these levels, then as infants, we have no other source of supply of love, supply of nurturing, supply of touch and care, and so on. So this template, meaning the first few years of life, sets the blueprint in motion. And if we don't have this beautiful dance, a function with our family of origin, then we're not buffered. Our bandwidth, our emotional bandwidth gets shorter and shorter. Our ability to attach properly to people gets interrupted, and we get what they call in attachment theory, either an anxious kind of attachment, a clingy kind of attachment, or an avoidant type of attachment, which then exactly dovetails with the topic of tonight, which is the dance of dysfunction, how toxic bonds are created, because you always have somebody who is the pursuer and someone who is the one that avoids and runs. And this is a terrible, terrible predicament for people, because nobody really wins at this game. There's an attempt to win the game, and the win in the mind of the person who is the love addict is to convert the love avoidant into somebody who is going to love and cherish and mirror and attune to the person who is so desperate for love. So in a perfect situation, of course, the baby's not desperate for love because the parent's supposed to be there on a consistent basis to supply this love. So there's no rubber band effect. So imagine if you stretch that rubber band so taut and you give such little love, then the neediness is going to build up. And that neediness is going to culminate in this sort of an anxious attachment style. And who does this anxious attachment style want to glue themselves to? Unfortunately, the love avoidant. So if you're in this predicament, which many people are in, please call in and let's discuss this. Let's dissect it, because if we move through the mind map, you could see that this gets more and more clear as we begin to connect the dots from childhood wounds to the reactions to the wounds. So the love avoidant is reacting by shutting down and avoiding, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like they don't really want to attach. And the love addict, of course, is the opposite. The clingy, the desperate, the addicted to love kind of person. And in their core beliefs, the core beliefs are actually very interesting because in the case of the love addict, they feel that they are defined by the outside approval of mom and daddy, and in this case, the love avoidant, which is a replica of the mother blueprint and the father blueprint, the unavailable blueprint. And so by winning the contest and converting the avoidant into the lover, they, alas, win the game, and they get to validate themselves and finally come full circle and have that feeling that they, after all, are lovable and they are worthy and they are important and they are cherished. And so you can see that in panel 3, what lands in panel 3 in terms of core belief is these messages from the parents that you're not lovable and that you're not important and that you're not cherished and that you're really not all that wanted. Now, in the case of the love avoided, a different set of core beliefs gets ingrained into the fiber of their being. The message here is that they're burdened by their parents, that there's a role reversal here, that they sometimes have to take care of their parents instead of being taken care of. And sort of for them, love means smothering, love means duty, love means this horrible obligation. And so the message is, let's avoid this, because if I don't fulfill my duty, shame on me. I'm a bad person. And so instead of feeling attracted to love, now they're forced into this dutiful kind of love. And that doesn't sound very romantic, does it? And it just doesn't sound very freeing. It doesn't make for a lot of interconnection. So this is a call-in show, folks. So please call in, and that number again, 323-524-2599. And let's talk about love addiction and this kind of a rubber band effect and this dance of dysfunction. Pia Melody has a retreat, a healing retreat in a place called the Meadows. And she works a lot with the drug of love addiction. And so there is a pathway of recovery for this, which actually her thinking and my thinking are very parallel, because in order to really get at the root cause of it, you can't just win the game out there with the next person. You've got to backtrack to your wounds of childhood, which is a very, very difficult thing to do. And people sometimes don't want to go there, which is why they would rather seek therapies that have band-aid effects, like, for example, medication would be one. Let's just medicate the feeling, or let's not even go to therapy at all. Let's just drink away the feeling, or let's just eat away the feeling, or exercise away the feeling. And so these kinds of feelings would be, therefore, ways to defend against these very painful feelings of either being smothered or being somehow pushed away and abandoned. So I want to make clear that actually the two aspects of these individuals are really similar. It's just that they're reversed. So the conscious fear of the avoidant is they consciously fear being smothered. They consciously fear that they're going to be controlled and dutifully enrolled in some sort of a relationship. They like the idea that they're the hero. They like the idea that they can rescue the damsel or the man in distress. It's just that after a while, there's no real synergy there. And so they may get bored, or they may feel smothered because the demands are too much. And then they'll opt out and start pushing away. So again, the conscious fear of the avoidant is that they're going to be smothered, and they are going to be overwhelmed and just eaten alive in that relationship. The conscious fear of the love addict is that she or he will be abandoned. That's the conscious fear. Now, the unconscious fear of the avoidant is actually that he or she will be abandoned because they never were truly loved for who they are. So there's no unconditional love in their blueprint. And so the authentic self doesn't really have a chance to develop. And so therefore, they were never really loved for who they were being, because being wasn't really valued by the family of origin. It was, what could you do for me? And I get a lot of calls from people who say something like, you know, I was my parents' caretaker, and when I was a little girl, I had to go and fix my mother breakfast, and I had to make sure that I woke my father up to be on time for work, or I had to babysit the children at age 8. I mean, we all know that these are inappropriate roles for 6-year-olds or 8-year-olds or children. Children are supposed to be free to explore and play and learn, and they're supposed to be free to be children. It's just that when parents are not well, and when there's a multi-generational transmission of psychopathology and nobody's really healed from any of their childhood wounds, then they play out their dynamics on their own children. And this creates quite a mess. And sometimes people never get out of the what the Freud area, which I call panels 4, 5, 6. The chaos, and then the defenses, which I was talking about. Let's cover up the pain. Let's just drink more. Let's have more food. Let's just sleep more. Let's exercise it away. Let's just have a lot of time with porn, because that way you can masturbate it away. There are all kinds of defenses that are there to cover up pain. And because we don't know what to do with the pain, many people don't know what to do with the pain, they go deeper and deeper into panel number 5. And of course, these defenses don't ultimately work because the loneliness gets to them, or the addiction makes them sick, or the isolationism makes them feel like at the end of the isolation period, they do feel lonely, but they don't really know how to have a proper relationship. So these defenses in this system gone wrong do break down. So that's what I call the WTF. And I think we have a call in. So thank you so much for calling in. Hi, what is your name, please?
Hello, this is Mary.
Hi, Mary. Nice to talk to you. Where are you calling from?
Texas.
Thank you for calling in, Mary. Have you called in before? Is this your first time?
No, I've called him before.
Okay, so what's going on with you, and update me in terms of your relationship to the topic, love, addiction, and toxic bonds.
Okay, so I had visited with a psychiatrist because I was trying to figure out what in the world was going on with my marriage.
Okay.
And the psychiatrist told me that I guess that I was a love addict and my now ex-husband is a sex addict.
Sex addict. Okay, well, that's one way to avoid, right? I was just finishing talking about panel number 5, which is defense mechanisms. So to put some distance between intimacy and you would be the sex addiction, which would be a way for him to have the sex without the intimacy. So yeah, go ahead. So what else did the psychiatrist say?
Oh gosh, she said a lot. Oh my gosh, sorry, it's been kind of nuts.
Yeah, that's what it
Well,
does. It makes us nuts. It throws us into chaos defenses, and then we break down. And then, unless we heal, we keep repeating it. So, yeah, so where are you in all of this? Where do you feel that your life is? If we're to look at the mind map, what panel do you feel that you're in right now?
um, I am, I guess, still trying to grasp that. I'm like, I guess, recovering because I have like complex PTSD.
Yes, yes.
And
And okay, just I'm stopping you because I want to make sure that the audience understands that term and that you and I are thinking alike when we say words like complex PTSD. To me, from a mind map perspective, means unconscious, unhealed, unprocessed childhood wounds.
correct.
Right? We're on the same page
Yes,
there. Okay.
yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, now I believe now that my ex is like a malignant narcissist,
Okay. And
and
what do you mean by malignant narcissist? How would you define that?
I would define that by he bought every single one of my attorneys in the divorce. He bought the psychiatrist to say I was dangerous. He's
Okay.
turned our children against me, most of the family and friends, and he broke probably every law that he could during the divorce.
Okay. So from a mind map perspective, I'm just putting in a little bit more of a mind map perspective. Narcissism is born out of a system gone wrong, and it's born out of having parents that are either controlling and smothering so that you don't have a chance to really feel unconditional love. It's again back to what are you doing for me? It could also be born out of deprivation. And so people who are narcissistically wounded, they protect themselves by shelling off their heart and getting more callous and developing apathy. So the empathy
Right.
goes out the window. And so therefore, their only way of functioning in the world is not by relating and connecting, it's through power and control, right? And the more hurt the person and the more you press on their buttons, the more they're going to try to get the control by demeaning you, devaluing you, buying you, sending flying monkeys to attack you, alienating you from the children. And so that's what you've been experiencing. Yes.
Oh, definitely, yes. It's been like awful.
Awful. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I
we're
wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Sorry.
absolutely. And so the complex PTSD is, just to put it in the perspective of this whole wounds of childhood and reactions and encodings, is what your ex is doing is he's triggering off your wounds in your reactions, and then tripping the lever of your negative core belief, which in the process of the mind map therapy you would discover and then dismantle. Because every time you trips up these negative core beliefs of yours, you fall into chaos, defenses, and then you break down, and then you try to pick yourself up again, and then you're re-triggered, and then it's WTF and WTF and WTF, and that's what I call the Freudian repetition cycle. And people don't get out of this because they keep thinking that at the end of the day, they're going to win, they're going to be victorious. The person that's the narcissist and the unempathic one will finally come to their senses. They will finally get down on their knees and have an aha moment and get how hurtful they've been. And this is just a sad replication of what the child wishes the parents would have done for them. And it doesn't happen. And I keep referring people to this video that I did a while back, and I've rerun it. The herder cannot be the healer. The herder cannot be the healer. But yet we try to undo all that mess by running it through the system again, and it just doesn't go anywhere but into chaos and defenses, and eventually horrible breakdowns that lead to tremendous depression, and sometimes these breakdowns get projected onto other people in the form of anger, and sometimes breakdowns turn so much so against the person that they can even become, unfortunately, of grave harm to themselves, including being suicidal. So if you are feeling that close to the edge, please get some higher level of care, get intervention right away, and keep the suicide prevention hotline at your fingertip access. And please use it until you can get to the bottom of it and recover from this and find a better pathway to connection and healing. So can I ask you, Mary, what are some of your childhood wounds, if you don't mind sharing, how you got into this, how the blueprint got you into this hot mess to begin with? So yeah, what wounds would you say you can identify with?
Okay, so my father, I believe, was an overt narcissist.
Okay.
And he, I guess he did like some inappropriate touching on me when I was probably like 7 or 8. And then when I got into middle school, oh my gosh, I really thought that he was going to, I guess, rape me. And because he was standing like right beside my bed, you know, with an erection, and it just, I was pretending to be asleep.
Wow.
And then when he heard someone coming down the hallway, he ran and got into his bed. Mm-hmm. And then when I was 17, he was, I guess, basically systematically making my mother go crazy. And I didn't understand, you know, I understand so much more now, but he was physically abusing her once all of my siblings went to bed. And I was, like I said, I was the second oldest. And so when he was hurting her, I would go and pull him off of her. And so he eventually sent her to a psych hospital, which she needed a lot of help because he was destroying her. And that same day that he sent her to the hospital, I really thought he was going to kill me because we ended up having an argument, and he had called my employer and told them I wouldn't be in for a week. And I didn't realize it was like, I I was the prey. I
Wow.
didn't realize that once
How old were you at that point?
17.
You were
So
17.
he got me on the floor, and then he was choking me, and I thought he was going to kill me. And so I dug my fingernails into his arms because I couldn't get him off of me, and I really thought I was going to die.
And were you able to get outside help at that point? Were you able to enroll the help of police department, child protective services? Did anybody stand by you?
Actually, the caseworker that was trying to help my mother, what I did was I when I was on the floor, I was like, okay, if I make it off the floor, I am going to move out next week, and I did. And it was kind of stupid, but I did get some help through the caseworker that was trying to help my mom. And I don't even remember how I got her number, but I did. And then I went and lived with a friend and her parents.
Okay.
And then I did go to the police department, and I reported the incident. And I also went to my siblings' school because I was really concerned about them, but I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah. Did your father try to find you? Did he continue to threaten you? Did he pull your siblings into the role that he put you into? What happened to, remember, this is a system gone wrong. So when you escape, then the next in line would be another one of your siblings. And I'm sure that's why you tried to warn them and report and do something. And so were they then next in line?
Well, they didn't. I think that they were think about it. They lost their mom one week. The next week they lose me. And anyways, he did. My dad did end up, I guess, he threw things into my friend's yard, and he did follow me home from work.
Okay.
Because I had gotten an apartment.
Okay, so I think the words, the very darkness of this, and all of these layers of the violence, and watching your mother be hurt by your father, and watching her be driven crazy, and then being sexually violated and physically violated, and worried about your siblings. This is very complex, and the complex PTSD are all those unprocessed feelings, because when you're in the thick of it, when you're in the trauma, you can't process the feelings. You're living in your amygdala, which is your fight flight system. So you're either fighting, or you're fleeing, or you're freezing, or you're fawning, one of those. And sometimes you go from one to the other. But processing the feelings only comes after the trauma, when you could sit and, for a moment, take inventory on what happened. And then anything that's not healed gets repeated. So can you see how you repeated this by hooking up with a husband that was also unempathic and also manipulative and also cruel? Can you connect the dots and see the pattern here?
Oh, I totally can. The thing is, what's funny, it's not funny, it's actually evil. But I had my husband, I had actually dated in high school, and he was like the only guy I dated that my dad liked.
Oh, wow. It made me think birds of a feather, right? So I'm sure your father could relate to this person. And oftentimes people like that can be quite charming, and they addict you by love bombing. So the love bombing might be something like bringing it on strong. What were you going to say?
Oh yeah, my ex had bought me so many flowers my mom had made the comment that most people don't get the number of flowers that I did, even at their funeral.
Yeah, and you know, and it was so sad that all of those flowers, which was supposed to represent love and joy and beauty and happiness and so on, was really the precursor to so much more pain. And so that's one of the things to look out for, is that when you are signing up for a relationship, please, 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 everybody, make sure that you have taken some time to heal yourself, so that you don't enroll somebody into your healing process and end up doing the what the Freud and go down into chaos defenses and breakdowns, and then either repeat it with the same partner or choose a similar partner. So if you have love avoidant issues, if you have love addiction issues, then you can understand that this goes back to the blueprint. There's an attachment trauma here with your family of origin, namely mother, primary caregiver, father, secondary caregiver. It's multi-generational. And so the smartest thing that you could do is invest in your mental health and get these traumas handled, get these patterns and blueprints handled and dismantled, so that you don't sign up for the same old, same old. So this is telling that the person that wants to draw you in, it's sort of like those horrible fairy tales. Come, little girl, do you want some candy? Do you want some flowers? And then, yeah, I want candy, I want flowers. And then the next thing is that now you're in, and now you're addicted. And what's the definition of addiction? Is that you want to keep coming back for more, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and then you keep paying a bigger price and getting smaller and smaller amounts of reinforcement in return. And that's what makes it so addictive, is that you want more, but they offer you less, and then you want even more and they offer you even less, and you end up with breadcrumbs, and now you're starving, and now you're breaking down and begging, and they're choking by feeling overwhelmed, because their trauma is that they have been overwhelmed, and they have been they have been smothered and controlled. So do you see how horrible these two injuries fit together? And then they do this horrible dance of dysfunction. I think Pia Melody describes it as such. It's a dance of dysfunction. So where are you exactly in your recovery?
That's my divorce. Like I said, it was so complicated,
Mm-hmm.
and so my ex has turned almost all of my kids against me. I think my oldest daughter now has like she either has narcissism or else she's like borderline.
Okay.
Because she has committed crimes for her dad.
How old is she?
She is 30.
Okay. So she's a full-grown adult. So she's not exactly in a physical hostage situation, because she can come and go, but yet she's in a mental hostage situation.
Yeah. Well, see, my ex is my mother-in-law is, I believe, an overt narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's like, now that I know all these things, it's like, oh my gosh.
Hey, have you read my book, Be the Cause: Healing Human Disconnect, or have you done the mind map journey to healing from narcissistic abuse, or the 9-panel mind map journey that I created a few years ago? Have you done any of the videos, or any of the reading, any of the work?
I have started, and I mean, there's still hope. I just I guess I get stuck.
Okay.
So no, I'm planning on going after this, and I need to call your office and get further instructions.
Yeah, please do, and then we'll take it from there, okay? Because there's a certain pathway out of this thing, and you can't just have the logical solution, because logic and psychology, there's logic and then there's psychologic with the emphasis on the psycho. That's stuff that makes us crazy. So if I logically explained everything to you, that would not cure you. You actually have to go back into the feelings. You've got to go back into those wounds, reprocess the wounds, which is what we do in this mind map process. And then we've got to dismantle that whole system gone wrong so that you're not carrying these negative core beliefs about yourself that point to your worthlessness and point to your unlovability and so on. And so through this work, you get to have better boundaries, and you get to the ultimate goal is that you lose your desire for chasing these people. You lose your taste buds for this. Right. That's the main point, is that I don't think I want to do this anymore. I think we're done here. Let's just move on and try something called panel number 7, which is right over here. You can see it in the background here. And 7 is where all of these circles come together, and there's synergy. And what is synergy? Synergy is the ability to interconnect. And why do some people have the ability to interconnect? Because they're healthier individualisms. When you take a healthy individualism and another healthy individualism and you put them together, they can connect in a healthy way and create light, synergy. They can evolve together. They can be growth partners. When you take an unhealthy individualism and you put it together with an unhealthy one, then one will eat up the other. So maybe the narcissist will eat the people pleaser. And so the light will drain out of the system. So neither one of them will really grow, because the narcissist has a deep hole in the soul. The people pleaser also has a deep hole in his or her soul. And together they don't make a whole. They just create more of a whole. It's very, very much like a vampire effect. Okay, so you've got to be ready to receive the love, ready to receive the connection, ready to appreciate feeling loved and sharing love. And how do you do that? You've got to prepare yourself for it, because in the old system, you're just prepared for this chase game, or the other partner's just prepared for this avoidant game. And then what never happens is synergy. What never happens is healing. Okay, makes sense?
It totally makes sense. So no, I have to call your office.
Yes, please do. And I'll make sure that either I will work with you or one of our team members will work with you. And we have 2 videos that you can partake in along with the therapy. And one is one that I created called the 9-panel mind map journey to healing. And you can get involved in that. That's sort of like Mind Map 101, all the basics, and I conduct that particular video, and with it you get, as you can see, the PDF of the book and a journal, and it's all a download, so don't wait for it in the mail. It's not a DVD. You code in, you download it, and then you're on the system, and then you have a therapist or life coach that leads you through. The other one is sort of like a mind map, a deeper addressing of narcissistic injuries. And this particular video is called Healing from the Mind Map Journey to Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. And my life coach, Yitz Epstein, hosts this particular video. He happens to be very passionate about helping people heal through narcissistic abuse. And of course, you can listen to more podcasts. I have one called Expanding our Consciousness. And then there are lots and lots of videos and downloads, and you keep learning and learning and psychoeducating. And pretty soon, you're just not going to be fooled anymore. You'll be too smart. And the goal of the mind map is to be preventative, to heal and then prevent you from falling into the same trap. And so that when you know how to think like a shrink, then you know to recognize the signs. And I want to get into this a little bit more. So thank you very, very much, Mary, for calling in, and call the clinic, okay? And we'll
get
started on this, because this is just something that doesn't go away, and it's brutal. It'll really, really tear down the human psyche, as you know. I don't have to tell you that, okay? Okay. So
thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing so much. And I hope everyone who's listening can learn a little bit about how this horrible, horrible template creates unhealthy attachment that then lays a foundation of a horrible system gone wrong, and patterns that people get involved with and loop through, and then they don't heal until they're just a mess. Okay, so let's be proactive. One of my favorite quotes in my book is a quote by Albert Einstein, and the quote is something like, "Smart people solve problems and geniuses prevent them." So let's be geniuses and prevent ourselves from falling into these horrible psychological traps. And if anyone still wants to call in, I think we have some time, so please do. That number is 323-524-2599. And I love to hear from you. I so much enjoy when people call in, because then it makes it real. It takes it from theory to reality. So here's an article by Zoe Weiner, March 22nd. I think it cut off the date. Nasty. Okay. So he talks about 7 tips for eliminating toxic people from your life. So I'm saying tip number 1, heal your childhood wounds. You can't just do behavioral modification on yourself, because believe it or not, when you change your behavior and you don't change your template, the unprocessed complex PTSD and the negative core beliefs will hijack your attempts to set these boundaries and to make these behavioral changes stick. So once you've done some healing, he says, just like any toxic thing, like food or poison, toxic people are extremely dangerous. Well, I think Mary described just how dangerous they could be. They could be sexual predators. They could ruin your reputation. They could beat you up. They could send other people after you. The list goes on. And then he talks about identifying the toxicity. So again, I'm going back to number 1, heal your childhood wounds. Go through an actual system of healing, not just talk therapy, because talk therapy can be endless and doesn't have a plan. So this is a real plan for recovery. So after you've done that work, you identify the toxicity. Toxic is actually recognizing the fact that it's harming you. Certainly you can recognize if a drug is harming you. You can recognize if you're breathing in poor quality air, but sometimes it's a little bit more difficult when it comes to toxic people. Toxic people are manipulative and often selfish. They're difficult to please and impossible to work with. Why? Because they have a hole in their soul, and it's an endless hole in the soul, and you cannot possibly fill it, because if you try, then they're going to just want more and more and more. They have a hard time owning their own feelings, which is a really crucial part of mind map healing, focused on self reflecting and self correcting. So if you have somebody in front of you who will not own their own stuff, if they're only interested in finger pointing and blaming and shaming and deflecting all of their pain onto other people, watch out. So healthy people own their own stuff. They know how to self reflect and self correct. The other aspect is to be firm. You have to use a powerful tone of voice. If you say no, you gotta mean no. Toxic people prey on weak people. So to be firm means to set boundaries. And once they really get it that there's no give here, then they'll probably pick on somebody else. Be very clear with the person about your intentions and keep the necessary distance. And this is such a big topic here at the Psychological Healing Center. Contact, no contact. And the point is, put yourself first. Be firm. If it's a family member that's hurting you, you still want to be firm. If you decide to continue contact with that person, you have to set up under what parameters do you want to have that contact, and where is the line. Very, very important, because if they take a little, if you give them an inch, it's like they want the mile. So back to setting the boundaries. Stick with your boundaries. They will use your weakness to sneak back into your life. Block their number, block them on social media. These are preventative things to do. Once you're healed, it's sort of like, once you're healed, you still have those vulnerable places, and they're called those wounds of childhood. And so you want to protect these wounds until you become more and more immune to them and develop a little bit of a scar tissue to be a little bit tougher. So you don't want to expose your vulnerability, which brings us to point number 4 of this article. Don't be too nice. Now, you don't have to be like them, and you don't have to be toxic yourself, but realize that they get their energy from draining your loving, good nature. So you don't want to show that you have a loving, good nature, because that just makes them hungry for more of your naive, loving, good nature. And then they can get in there once again and love bomb you, for example, and mirror your loving, good nature for a little until they can break you down and toxically tie you to them once again. Point number 5, realize it's not your job to save them. So in your family of origin, it might have been your job to save your mother, people please your father. If you're love avoidant, it might have been your job to be the parent to your adult parents and take on burdens and responsibilities that didn't belong to you. So it is not your job to save anybody. And so you put on your oxygen mask first, because if you don't, then nobody's going to be saved. So here's where you make yourself strong. And in choosing partners, you choose partners that are strong enough, that can hold their own, that you don't have to lean on them and break them, nor do they lean on you so much and break you. So there's a give and take. There's that panel 7 concept of synergy. And then the other number 6 item is know when it's done, it's done. So don't think that time will make this better. Just because time has gone on, it doesn't mean that the person is cured. Far from it. If they didn't do any of the work, then why would they be cured? They're just back for more. They're going to test your boundaries. This is something that commonly happens when you close the door on someone who's a love avoidant. What it activates in them is that fear of abandonment. And so when they're in their fear of abandonment, they will start chasing you again. And don't confuse that with authentic love, because authentic love is not a game. Okay, authentic love is something that builds, and he is healing and is supportive and feels good. It's not something that is toxic. It's not a toxic bond where somebody is chasing and the other one is running away. That's not love, right? And then the last point is treat your separation like the breakup it is. Yes, we need relationships, but we don't need every single relationship. So don't think that you're going to have this relationship with this individual at all costs, because the costs may be too high. They may be so high that you're now in a deep, dark hole of depression. They may be so high that you're in divorce court spending your last dime to try to get custody of your children, or save your home, and so on. And so know when the price is too high and treat it like the breakup or separation that it is. So I'm going to ask if anybody else wants to call in really quickly, and then I'll jump into my shrinking of the tune. And so remember, what is a toxic bond? A healthy bond is something that's supposed to nurture you. A mother and an infant is supposed to be a healthy bond. The healthy blueprint is supposed to be interactive. Mommy plays with a baby, baby smiles, mommy smiles back, baby has needs, mommy responds in a system of mother, father. Then the father oftentimes plays the role of a parent, also an attachment parent, and then also may nurture the nurturer, who typically is mom. It could be opposite. And so it's a system gone right. And a healthy bond creates a healthy dependency, which then creates a healthy independence. A lot of people ask me, well, can you give too much love to your baby? And the answer is not really. You can't give too much love to a baby, because that's what babies crave and need. They need a lot of love. You're not spoiling a baby by breastfeeding them on their schedule, or feeding them on their schedule, or letting them sleep on their schedule, or picking them up and holding them a lot, or smiling and playing with them, unless you're overstimulating them and they're giving you the signal that they're too tired and they need to shut down. And that's respecting the baby's boundaries. There's nothing really that you could do to be too, you can't be too loving. So a lot of these ways of raising children, one was called the Ferber method, where the doctor was recommending that the baby just cry it out, created a lot of anxious attachment. Now, in moderation, if you want to get some sleep and you want to train your baby slowly to be without you, then that would be sort of like a way of slowly building up a little bit more tolerance for them to be alone. But you don't just suddenly let the baby cry it out and let them scream and build up all this anxiety and upset in their crib as you walk away. That's going to create a really, really horrible, anxious attachment, clingy behavior. And that's not the kind of parenting that's going to foster healthy dependency and healthy independence. So I want to go to my tune called Addicted to Love, okay, by Robert Palmer. So appropriate for this topic. Addicted to love. Your lights are on, but you're not home. Your mind is not your own. So this to me means that, let's say your lights are on, but you're not home. Let's say your parents, they're there, but they're not really present. Your mind is not your own. So they're not really in their mind. They're not emotionally available. Your heart sweats, your body shakes. Another kiss is what it takes. You can't sleep. you can't eat. So now they're talking about the addiction. You're in sweats, your body's shaking. It's kind of like that withdrawal symptom, these withdrawal symptoms. Another kiss is what it takes, just another dose of love, another dose of the drug. And this is where the toxic bond starts forming, because when you don't get enough of that love, or you don't have the blueprint enough of that love, then you're starting to have high level cravings for it. So now you can't sleep, you can't eat, and your brain's been hijacked. There's nobody home. There's no doubt you're in deep. Your throat is tight, you can't breathe because you're relying on another human being to regulate your emotions. You were supposed to rely on your mother, your family of origin, your primary caretakers to regulate your emotion. But now, if you're dysregulated, well, then you've got to get a dose of the drug in order to sleep, in order to breathe. It's closer to the truth to say you can't get enough. You're addicted to love. You see signs, but you can't read. You're running at a different speed. Your heart beats in double time. Another kiss, and you'll be mine, a one-track mind. So do you see how this song almost describes a kind of an addiction? You can't be saved. Well, you can't be saved because you're chasing the person that's going to keep looping you through this horror story, the what the Freud. Oblivion is all you crave. So you want to leave, you want to avoid, or you want to numb yourself or whatever. It's closer to the truth, so you can't get enough. Might as well face it. You're addicted to love. And again, this is not love. This is addiction. Love is not an addiction. Love is synergistic. Love is nurturing. Love creates light. Love creates healing. Love creates a support system. Love is consistent. It's not this chase avoidant game. So then the song just keeps going on and on. Your lights are on, but you're not home. Your will is not your own. Well, now you've been completely hijacked by this craving and addiction for love. And of course, the love avoidant is just the opposite. Run, 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 because the addict is coming, and the addict is going to overwhelm you, and back off, because that's what the love avoidance parents did, is smother and control and use the child to meet their own needs. So they don't really have a true feeling for what is love. It's love to them is let's be used. Let's tie you to a life of slavery and usury, and that's their blueprint of what love is. And so we've got to unwind from all of this. We've got to go back into the childhood wounds and dismantle the system gone wrong, so that we can reboot the system and have a new blueprint for love, which is about synergy, about support, about security, about a secure attachment, a growth partner. So I really appreciate you tuning in, and know that we offer free consultations to everyone. And so if you are addicted to love, if you're in a toxic bond, you can set yourself free from this psychological prison. And the mind map is an actual system that will take you from your wounds of your past and your patterns through dismantling all of this and to paradigm shifting into health. And if in particular you have identified yourself to be the child of a narcissistic mother or father or both, then please know that we have an intensive plan for you to get out of the toxicity of this narcissistic abuse, and you can heal and recover from narcissistic abuse, and you can heal and recover from your childhood wounds. I really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Good night.